Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we talk all about the home teams, the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, and the Tulane Green Wave. We got a great panel to break it down for you tonight. Ricardo, LeCompte, his first time on the program from Channel 4 Sports. Also, Glenn Guilbeau of USA Today Network. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Always good to have you guys coming down. And Ricardo, thank you for making the maiden voyage on the show today. I'm glad our schedules finally jived here.
Finally, it did.
And if you would tell the folks about, a little bit about yourself. You've been in New Orleans now for a while, and of course, a little bit about what's going over at Channel 4.
Yeah, I've been in New Orleans for a year. Got here last fall, so I got to watch the start of the Saints kind of turn around here, and their turnaround continuing. And let me just, I'll kind of break down what we've got going on at Channel 4 right now. Of course, we've got a LSU Florida big game coming up Saturday. We've got an Eye on the Tigers post-game special, which will air after that game. That game, of course, is going to be on Channel 4. And, of course, I've got Fourth Down Friday on Friday nights, where we do all our prep football, as well as Fourth Down on 4 on Sunday nights, which happens right after 10 o'clock news, around 10:35. So we got a lot going on. It's football season. We just stay busy. I'm sure that's the case for all of us.
Yeah, it is. And, of course, before we know it, middle of October, Pelican season will kick off too.
I know, and then we got NBA. This is the best time of the year because you got postseason baseball, you've got NFL, you got college football, and you've got NBA starting. I mean, if you're a sports fan, you've got to love this time.
No doubt. Glenn covers the Saints and LSU for USA Today Network. Talk about USA Today Network, formerly what? Gannett News, right?
Right. They switched the name to USA Today Network for hundreds or so papers and TV stations in the country, but real busy with LSU mainly and the Saints, and I hope to cover the World Series again like I did last year. Because the open date falls at the right time. So that was great last year. I got to go to 3 of those Astro games. But, I mean, we were just talking a minute ago, it was looking like a great season for LSU and the Saints. And, I mean, LSU is just really getting better everywhere, as the season's going on. Got a lot of LSU coverage, more than usual, because the season's going on at LSU Beat Tweet and the advertiser.com, WLAE-TV.com.
And, of course, their website as well.
Right.
You can catch all of your writings.
Right.
Guys, let's start with the Saints, 33-18 winners last week. 3-1 on the season. They beat the Giants in New Jersey, New York. I thought it was the best game of the season. When I went back and looked at the game and broke it down play by play, I thought it was the most complete game of the season. I do agree with Sean Payton when he said the teams, each team complemented each other. Look, there are still some flaws that remain with this team, but I want to get an overview of what 3-1. Maybe not the way you wanted to get the 3-1, but you're 3-1 in the first quarter. Ricardo, your thoughts?
Well, I think at this point, if we were going to go through the first 4 games without Mark Ingram, we would expect probably a 3-1. This is where we kind of expected them. And that's the thing. You get Mark Ingram back after a 4-game suspension, you have to be sitting pretty if you're the Saints, because there are parts that you have to kind of work on. Defensively, we know the secondary is still a work in progress. We know that the running game has been pretty much non-existent outside of Alvin Kamara in that first game. So you add Mark Ingram to that. Those are issues that you were having. You still got to 3-1. So if you're a Saints fan, you got to have a little optimism moving forward, knowing that they can only go up from here. When you mentioned the most complete game that they played, Sean Payton said this, Drew Brees said this constantly after the game, after that win. Complementary football, all aspects of the game, offense, defense, special teams was working for the Saints. You have to feel like the Saints are moving in the right direction, and this is. If we looked at the beginning of the year, this is kind of where we expected them to be 3-1, despite all the problems that they've had. But there's problems that they can fix, and it's better to fix them at 3-1 versus 1-3 or 0-4.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Your thoughts so far, 3-1 the first quarter?
Well, I think the offense has been great. I mean, they could run the ball a little bit better, but as good as the offense has been, they haven't had Mark Ingram. And now they got Ingram. I really like what they're doing with Taysom Hill, how they're moving him around quarterback in the backfield. And it's not just a gimmick like you see a lot in college with the Wildcat. They're not doing it to be cute. It's really a strength. And he throws the ball. He can run the ball. I want to see him pitch it out to him and run on a sweep and then pitch it out to him and throw the halfback option. But and Ingram is going to just make the offense that much better. You know, they're going to add inside running to the repertoire, and you know, I'm still worried about the secondary because not all the opponents are going to cater to them like the Giants did by not throwing deep.
Yes.
But you know, this is what too often NFL coaches, it's kind of like you are what you are and we can't get you any better. You know, well, they need to get those DBs better. You know, because that's all they got right now. Because they cut the other ones and they got picked up.
Right.
So they got to improve those cornerbacks that they have. And those guys need to get better, and they need to be helped with some scheme and pass rush. But other than that, the little cornerback issue, I think they just look good everywhere.
Yeah. Of course, he's talking about Jamerson, Moore, and the other Marcus Williams all cut at the last cut, all picked up by Williams by Tampa Bay, Jamerson by the Houston Texans, and Moore by the New York Giants. And there's no cornerbacks out there, even though they got a corner in today.
Maybe they should have cut another position.
You know, I mean, it's just, well, if you look at it, it's special teams. You know, they've made a concerted effort over the last few years to make sure that the special teams are top notch. And they went out, they got 3 coaches on the special teams now, which they didn't have at one time. And what they've done is with J.T. Gray and a guy like Taysom Hill, other players that they brought on, Hardy's another one, that they made sure their special teams are stout. And what they've done, especially in the secondary with Hardy and J.T. Gray there, you maybe gave up on some guys that maybe were some pure corners, because those guys, they can play safety and play a little bit, you know, in a pinch, but they're really first-team special teamers.
Yeah, you have to kind of remember that the kickoff rules changed this year. So your makeup of what your special teams are going to look like, especially on kick returns, changes. You can't have big guys there. You've got to have guys which are around that linebacker, cornerback, safety kind of mold. So that, in essence, kind of you have to eyeball your roster a little bit, going, all right, well, maybe we won't carry. You know, we have to carry a certain type of body type in order for that. So that's one reason why you're kind of you have to kind of tweak what the roster looks like because of that.
The best of both worlds would be if you had obviously players that you could count on as backups or starters at a certain position on the offensive defense, and then have those on special teams. The Saints have chosen, and look, rightly so. The special teams were bad for a long time, to go out and get guys that again they know are really good special teams players, and it has hurt them a little bit in depth.
And they kind of robbed Peter to pay Paul, too, because cornerback is just a specialty position, and you've got to be good there. I mean, that's why they won the Super Bowl in 2009, because they were great at cornerback, so they got to get better there. But, you know, they can't go back and fix what they did. Yeah.
You know, staying with the special teams and also Hill for a moment, you know, I'll tell you what, I didn't know what to think with Taysom Hill, and anybody watches this show, listens to my radio show, I didn't think much of it. I mean, I said it on the radio show. What are you going to do? Take the ball out of Breeze's hands in the red zone, out of the Hall of Famers' hands, and give it to Taysom Hill? Are you kidding me?
Well, they've done that.
Well, they're doing it. Okay, and more than anything else, I think it's kind of rejuvenated Sean Payton. He's been going deep into the playbook now. If you look at the first 4 games, you look at what he's done with Taysom Hill. He adds a wrinkle every single week. You know, again,
and he's good at that.
No, he really is. It's been amazing what he's done.
Yeah, it's kind of like the mad scientist. I just picture Sean Payton in a laboratory, just kind of going, what can I do with Taysom Hill? Like, what different things? It's an offensive coordinator. If you got such a genius offensive mind like Sean Payton has, and you have a weapon like Taysom Hill who can run, who can throw, who can just give you different kinds of looks for defenses, that's a dream for somebody like that to do it. And I like how they're using him, at least in those read option plays. They're using him in those plays where he has a threat to throw and run. run. And even though Breeze is taken out of the play, you still have that option of throwing that read option. Him and Kamara, that's a deadly combination for a defense. It's just another thing for a defense to think about when you throw Taysom Hill there. And ultimately, it's keeping the defense off balance, and that's what you're doing with Taysom Hill.
And then he gets a new player this week.
Yeah.
Right. No,
so you know he's loving the game.
Absolutely. And not just that, again, you got Hill on special teams as well, what he's been able to do with that. I mean, it's no longer, the Saints are going to automatically kick, punt, whatever it's going to be. You got Hill there, and he's a weapon now.
And that was a key fake punt they had against the Giants and the Falcons or both? Yeah, against the Giants, right.
Yeah, no doubt. So again, I like the addition. We'll see again when we get to midseason or so, as teams start to get a little bit more of a book on what they're doing with Hill, how effective he can be. But right now, it's working. No doubt about it. Guys, we talked a little bit about the cornerback position. This week, I thought Lattimore looked like the old Lattimore. I'll be honest with you. First 3 weeks, I was not impressed. Whether he rested on his laurels. You were at training camp. I know he took Michael Thomas one-on-one through most of training camp. He was saying that his legs were a little bit dead. Yeah. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Maybe it was resting on his laurels a bit. I thought he played the type of game that we expect out of him. He really shut down OBJ. I think Manning lent to that a little bit because he did not go deep, so we don't know if again, what they did, it really worked or just worked against the Giants. Crawley, I thought he had a pretty good game, and I think P.J. Williams is a nickel corner. When you put him on the outside, I think he's too exposed. I think he fits in right there in that spot. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and that's where he played well last year when he was playing in that nickel. And maybe the injury to Patrick Robinson is kind of blessing in disguise for P.J. Williams because now he's in a natural position at that nickel. Back to Marshawn Lattimore, and he said afterwards that he felt like his legs were fresher. He just felt kind of tired. And all through training camp, when we were watching Marshawn Lattimore, one of the things we were going was like he was not having a great camp. Maybe last year as a rookie, you're kind of fighting for a position. You're kind of fighting to make the team. So maybe you're having a little bit more push. Maybe you're trying a little harder. It seems like once and this is just from our observations, when he was going after that rookie year that he had, became defensive rookie of the year coming into this season, it was kind of like, all right, well, I'm the number one guy. All right, I'm good. And he did not have a good training camp. And it kind of carried over a little bit into these first couple of games of the season where he wasn't playing up to that defensive rookie of the year level. This last game, it looked like he was a fresher Lattimore, and he was there for that fumble recovery that P.J. Williams forced, and he just seemed to be able to blanket OBJ for the most part. I mean, you can't stop him. Right. You can only hope to contain a talent like that. But I thought Lattimore played, like you said, his best game to date.
Right. And in addition, they have more film on Lattimore now, too. It's kind of like a pitcher once he's going through the league one time, a rookie pitcher. So it may be a combination of what you said and with opponents, except for the Giants, knowing how to attack him and the Saints.
I totally agree with you. Again, both of you, really. But film has always been the great equalizer. And you know that, again, they've got film on every one of these young players that just catapulted themselves last year and did such a great job. They're going to try to take away what their strengths are. And
that's worked on Kamara.
Oh, yeah. No, not yet.
No, it hasn't.
But it did work on Lattimore early.
Right.
The most impressive player in that defensive backfield for me so far has been Von Bell. Von Bell is, if you go back and you look at the film, Von Bell is there on running plays. He is helping in run support, and for a guy that has not been thought to be a very good in pass defense, he has been there around the player that he's supposed to guard. He has defended passes, and when the player catches a pass, he's quick to get that player down. He's been a sure tackler. I thought he said up to this point he's had his best season as a pro.
Yeah, he has, and once again, it's almost addition by subtraction. You have Kenny Vaccaro kind of in there. Von Bell kind of gets into that strong safety spot, and he was. Remember, they brought in Kirk Coleman to kind of push him in that position, and so far Von Bell has been able to step up and play in that spot.
Have you noticed anything about Von Bell?
Well, I thought he had a good season last year, particularly late in the season. But yeah, he's made some key defensive plays, particularly against the Giants, and they need somebody to come up in the forefront there in the secondary with the problems they've had. But it looks like they might get better.
The pass rush has still been inconsistent. We were talking about it before the show. Ryan had 6 to 8 seconds 2 weeks ago to throw the ball. Manning got the ball out in 2 to 3 seconds. The pass rush has been really inconsistent. You got a situation with Cam Jordan, he's getting double teamed every single time. Sometimes he's getting triple teamed, okay? Where a tight end is also chipping on him. The other players that are playing, whether it's Rankins, whether it's Okafor or Davenport, these guys have got to beat the guy across from them. They are getting man-to-man against a tackle or a guard or a center, and they're not creating the pressure quick enough for the passer. That's something that's got to change over the next few weeks, considering, again, your best pass rusher's got either 2 or 3 players, attacking him.
That Tampa Bay game, we talked to Teron Armstead, offensive lineman for the Saints. And it was a great perspective of, he's one of the few offensive guys that actually watches the defense, because most of the offensive guys are usually in their huddle and they're watching. And he was noting what Tampa Bay was doing against Cam Jordan. I mean, it was basically 3-4 guys were hitting. So if it was a double team, it's the tight end chip and it's the running back. And he was like, that was the smartest thing Tampa Bay could do to negate that. All teams know that Cam Jordan is the guy that's going to be able to get pressure on your quarterback and disrupt what you do. So it is smart for them to double team, to triple team, to just get a body on him and on him at all times when he's coming, so you don't have a disruption in what you do offensively. So it does fall to guys like Alex Okafor, who's coming back from that Achilles tear. It does fall to a rookie, Marcus Davenport, who I think has potential to be really good.
So
he is a freak of nature. Yes. And even, you need Sheldon Rankins to excel in his 4th year, maybe even David Onyemata to be able to be a factor as well. But there has to be a second guy outside of Cam Jordan, because teams are going to continue to double and triple team them.
And we haven't seen it yet, Glenn. I'll tell you, not one of those guys consistently has put pressure on the passer, and you got one guy trying to get taken out of the game by 3 guys. At times, even Cam Jordan's still getting sacks, and he's got 2 guys on him.
Well, if there's 3 guys on him, somebody's got to be not blocked. So what is going on? Yeah. Dennis Allen's got to figure that out.
No, they really do. And another thing that I've noticed, and he did a lot last year, Allen, is dropping defensive linemen into coverage, to try to fool the quarterback. Last week you had Onyemata on OBJ. If Manning takes a second less to try to throw that ball to Shepard in the end zone, and he looks and he sees OBJ coming across the middle, it's a touchdown, because there's no way Onyemata can handle it. Jordan, your best pass rusher, being dropped into coverage. We've seen Rankins dropped into coverage. I understand you could fool a quarterback sometimes, but when you're not able to get pressure on the passer, don't take your best pass rushers out of the ability to rush the passer.
Yeah, it makes sense. You would think they wouldn't do that, but again, that's Dennis Allen's call, and that's kind of what he wants to do. He wants to confuse as many quarterbacks as possible, having those different coverages of bringing it back. I haven't seen as much blitzing probably.
No. Demario Davis did this week.
Now Demario Davis did. He had 2 sacks against Eli, but outside of that, you don't really see as much linebacker pressure.
They have not manufactured pressure. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. That's something they've really got to do.
Yeah.
Glenn?
Yeah, I think you can blitz too much. I thought Greg Williams started doing that toward the end of his run with the Saints. And just from covering LSU, Aranda has tried to rush the passer without blitzing, and it's worked sometimes because you keep the guy in coverage, but it's kind of the Peter and Paul thing. But definitely, if you got 3 guys blocking Cam Jordan, that's a perfect opportunity to blitz. Yeah. So they probably need to blitz more.
Yeah, and look, Allen's done it in the past. He's manufactured pressure. We've done it with safeties, corners, linebackers. It's interesting to see how they do that.
And if your corners can't cover anyway, you might as well just blitz.
Might as well, yeah. Well, hopefully what we saw last week was not an anomaly, and we will see that this week against the Washington Redskins. Very similar game plan to what the Giants had. Again, we'll talk about that in a few minutes with Alex Smith dinking and dunking his way up and down the field. A lot of question marks about the running game, guys, in terms of stopping the run. I will say this. I thought it was a little bit of a fool's goal early because of teams being able to throw on the Saints. I will say over the last couple of weeks, especially the last 5 quarters, they've been stout. Stallworth, Onyemata, Rankins, across the board, the middle of that line, they have been, even Bromley, who again had, against Atlanta, 12 snaps, 4 tackles, who got cut today, was pretty stout on the inside of the defensive line. That was thought to be, even by yours truly, a weakness of this team going into the season. It'll be interesting to see now against Washington, a team that is very, very run heavy, if the Saints can stand up. But the last 5 quarters, they've stood up.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley, who's been a stud, coming into that contest against the Giants. Remember, the Saints had the best rush defense, giving up 3 yards per carry, and then Saquon's gets held to 50 yards. And it's been one of the strengths for the defense being able to stop the run. I know they haven't been able to stop the pass, but at least
Right.
they're stopping one aspect of other teams' offenses. And then when you were mentioning Washington with Chris Thompson and Adrian Peterson, man, what a story with Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
Now he gets to come back and play
Yes.
the Saints when it seemed like, AD was done. Like, It was like, all right, well, after it didn't work out, and it didn't work out here, which I think offensive systems and kind of styles of running just didn't work out. But, man, he's had a revival in Washington. That'll be a great challenge for that defense to stop
Well,
them.
I agree with you. Volume back is
Yes.
the reason why. At Arizona, he could get the carries, but he got hurt. Here in New Orleans, he was never to get those carries. That's why I wondered why it was even broached to even bring him in. He's in a place now where he can get those carries. He's going to get the carries. I left Tyler Davidson out. He's also been playing well against the run. What have you seen?
Well, it is funny because I think everybody thought they'd be very good with the pass rush.
Yes,
with
no doubt.
Davenport and Cam Jordan. With Davenport taking some of the pressure off Jordan, and there were questions about the run, but it's been just the opposite. So I don't know. I think that's got to be a scheme type idea from Dennis Allen. And as far as Adrian, I think they didn't maybe realize that Kamara was going to explode like he did. There just wasn't enough balls to give to Adrian because, I mean, you didn't get a good example of his skill. I thought he was going to be real good, and I'm glad that he's found a new place there.
Guys, it's really hard to really try to nitpick the offensive side of the ball for this team right now. The offensive line at times has been porous. They're sending opposing teams are sending a lot of players up the middle on Breeze as they've done. Unger has had some problems at times. Wolford, Pete, you had Labrevis in there. They haven't been as strong up the middle as they've been in the past. But you're looking at a team that has been able to move the ball at will. Whether it's Kamara, whether you're looking at the situation with Taysom Hill, Michael Thomas dominating the NFL over the first 3 weeks of the season. Your thoughts on the offense thus far?
Michael Thomas has been a beast. I think that's number one. I mean, when you're getting targeted, what he's got now, 44 catches on 46 targets, which is about over 90% target to completion ratio. I mean, that is ridiculous. I mean, it's NFL history good with Michael Thomas, and he's been excelling in his third year. Again, it is kind of hard to nitpick
really
what
is
is wrong with this offense. Maybe it's finding another weapon. Maybe it's getting Ben Watson more involved. Maybe getting the rookie Traquan Smith more catches. And you kept Austin Carr, so maybe more production out of the slot. But when you have someone like Michael Thomas where you can line up anywhere on the field, slot, outside, I mean, X, Y, it's kind of hard to really nitpick what's going wrong. And, oh, by the way, you're adding Mark Ingram back into that. So now you're going to have balance on offense. This offense, with what they were able to do, despite missing key parts of that, it can only get even better. And you had Labrevis probably there. You have now Andrews Pete, if he can get healthy now, and then get some cohesion in the offensive line. They could be a really good offense.
You expect them to be a much more physical offensive line now with Ingram coming back. Last year, the physicality of Ingram's running, you saw that offensive line just kind of take that and run with it themselves. Second level, guys just pancaking guys. I mean, again, Ingram seems to bring that out in the offensive line. It'll be interesting to see, again, what he brings to the table this Sunday. But overall, your thoughts on the offense, Glenn?
Well, Breeze has been playing great, and I mean, it's amazing that some people wrote him off as long as 2 years ago. But he's just been playing fantastic. I mean, they had 2 drop touchdowns. It was on the same drive. Kamara dropped one from Taysom, and then Ben Watson dropped one from Breeze, which was a perfect pass. I mean, he's putting the ball right where it needs to be. He's as good as ever, I think, because he never had the big cannon arm.
Yeah.
He's never really a deep thrower. So I think we're seeing a great season out of him. And a lot of teams would be dependent on Ingram to dominate the running game. But with the Saints, with what they've done, and it's almost with him not there, it almost kind of forced them to see what else they can do. Now he comes back. I mean, he's just another option.
Yeah.
So it's going to be real interesting to see what Sean does with Ingram back, with Breeze playing so well, and with the Taysom Hill factor. And really, Thomas is the first great receiver Breeze has had since he's been with the Saints,
no
I
doubt.
think. Because he made average receivers look great, and he made bad ones look good.
Totally agree with you. The system has really helped with that as well. Guys, when we're talking about Breeze, I'll stay with you, Glenn. You've been a lifelong fan since a kid, Saints fan since the Saints were brought an expansion team in.
68, my first season I went.
Your thoughts on Breeze? Your thoughts on, again, 201 yards, the all-time leading passer before it's all said and done. He'll have broke every record. We've seen every quarterback that's gone through here since 1967. Nobody would have thought that somebody like Breeze would be here in New Orleans and what he's been able to do. Reflect for us.
Well, it's amazing. I was in Lafayette last night, and Archie and Les Miles spoke in an event, which was really amazing. But Brett Favre is from right near New Orleans. He's second on the list right now that Breeze will pass first. Peyton Manning is from New Orleans, and Breeze plays for the Saints. But, it's an amazing record, and I think it's a testament to Breeze because unlike some of the other quarterbacks like Brady, he hasn't always been on a great team and usually has not had a very good defense.
Yes.
And as we just said, hasn't had a lot of great receivers. So it's been really all and they've had problems with the offensive line in those first few years after the Super Bowl.
Yes.
So he's done so much on his own. And those 7 and 9 seasons that Peyton had that the Saints had without Breeze, they would have been 3 or 4 win seasons. So I think he deserves it. And there were a couple of seasons where he was getting meaningless stats because you knew they weren't going to the playoffs. But still, that's all they could do was throw the ball. So I think he definitely deserves it.
Ricardo, what are your thoughts about Breeze? And again, how big this is as a milestone in his career?
Well, this is an absolute great milestone he's going to pass when he passes Peyton Manning, 201 yards away from the all-time passing record. You kind of have to go at the crossroad of where his career from where it kind of started to where he took this upward trend when he was leaving San Diego and had that decision whether to go with Nick Saban in Miami or come here and kind of revitalize not only just this team but this entire city. Yeah. And it seems like he made the right decision in his career path to come to New Orleans. He's been such a big figure not only on the field but as well as off the field. When it's all said and done, he's going to be regarded around here as the greatest quarterback. I mean, even though Peyton Manning's from New Orleans, most people are going to say Drew Brees' name first before they say Peyton Manning's here, at least in the city. Yes. In the laurels of the NFL, he's not going to be Brady or Montana simply because of the championships. He only has one. Maybe he could get a second one here in these next 2 years. But even though the championships aren't there, he's going to have all these passing records. And the love affair that people in this city have for Brees is going to carry on, after he retires.
Ricardo, that's a great debate. I've had it on my radio show. It's not Brees' fault that this team did not field a great defense during his time here in New Orleans. Again, you had mentioned the wide receivers. Brees made everyone around him better on that offensive side of the ball. It's the part of the organization, and it's not for lack of trying. I mean, they put #1 draft choices out there, almost entire drafts trying to draft defensive players. They just haven't panned out for the most part. When you look at Brady, who's had the ability to have Belichick, who is a defensive genius, as his head coach, and the number of titles that he's won, you look at, again, Peyton and the number of titles he's won. I mean, should it be held against Brees, the fact that he played on a team, even that again, the offense was always great, again, with him being the catalyst of that, and the defenses were so bad with only one championship? There are some championships left on the table when you look at Seattle, San Francisco, and then last year with Minnesota. Legitimate chances for the Saints to go to the Super Bowl and win that they left on the table. Why? The defense was leaky. Should it be held against him? And I'm talking about nationwide in the annals of the NFL. Not here in New Orleans, but nationwide.
I think in the end, it's always championships. The championships define, what you do. I mean, and it's football. It's the ultimate team game. So you could be the best individual talent in the world, but if your team's not good, that it kind of goes hand in hand there. And I'll even go with Tom Brady with that argument. I mean, Tom Brady and Belichick, it's kind of been that pairing, but that's been the one constant. Even though all the pieces around it changes, that's been the one constant. It's kind of been the same.
Even though they don't get along.
Even though they don't, even though they don't get along, that's been the one constant.
Kind of the same here, though.
And it's the same here with Drew Brees and Sean Payton.
But they get along. They get along.
They love each other. I mean, they're calling each other in off-season, trying to, talking plays and talking family stuff. I think, because I'm an NBA guy, I do base it on championships. That's why I always go Michael Jordan's better than LeBron James. Right. I'll do the same thing with the NFL because in the end, championships are ultimately what everyone's going to judge you on. Yes. And I would still give it Brady over Brees, even though I think Brees is probably one of the better talents. I think one of the better arm talents I've seen has been Brett Favre. I mean, growing up, I think he's been the great. But if I have to go greatest of all time, my vote goes to Tom Brady.
Glenn, same question.
Well, the argument you presented for Brees you know, you could make that argument for Jim Kelly too. You know, was it his fault they lost all the Super Bowls? I don't know. Their defense was never great, and really, to me, I kind of like, I put Peyton a little closer to Brady than most, because Peyton got to 4 Super Bowls with 4 different coaches, I believe, maybe just 3. You know, he didn't have that luxury that Brady's had with the same coach. And Peyton also had bad defenses a lot when he was playing. So, you know, you could play that all day. But it's unfortunately, regardless of the details, it's going to be championships. And Breeze does have one detail that none of those other quarterbacks have in their argument. He had to have a season where he didn't have his coach.
Yes.
Because Peyton was suspended. And you know, I blame the organization and Peyton for that, because that was a great team that really messed up. Because the 12 team was a great team. The 12 team that lost to San Francisco. And they still would have been better the next year, or as good if Peyton would have returned, or if they would have hired a decent replacement coach instead of 3 or 4, whatever they did. That was ridiculous. But yeah, I think there's been some things happen that's hurt Breeze, but yet he's been great every year, and not everybody around him, including the organization, can say the same thing.
Because he'll probably have every record by the time it's all over.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and then at the end of the day, you know, there's always going to be that conversation: Montana, Brady, where's Breeze in it? Because of only 1 championship.
Yeah. Well, he could end up getting 1 more.
Yeah.
Well,
who knows? Maybe 2 more.
Let's hope so. No doubt. Let's talk about the Redskins this week. We talked a little bit about it. Alex Smith, dinks and dunks. We've seen that in his times with the Chiefs and also with San Francisco. As I mentioned, Jordan Reed, the tight end, Chris Thompson, the running back, leading pass catchers for this team. They don't really have the quote-unquote deep threat. And you wonder if they're going to challenge the Saints deep, simply because, again, other teams have been successful. But their MO is, again, strong running game, dink and dunk with a short passing game, which kind of fits what the Saints do well on defense.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's kind of, you copy the best in the NFL. I mean, imitation is the best form of flattery, and Jay Gruden is one guy who studied the New Orleans offense, taking pieces of what New Orleans has been doing and what Sean Payton has done over the years as kind of a template of what he does. So you may see a little bit of similarities on Sunday, what kind of Washington wants to do and what they kind of do, compared to what the Saints do offensively. And the Alex Smith edition, I personally, and I'll say this out here, I am a Redskins fan, so I've been watching this team, through this season. I actually do think Alex Smith has been an upgrade over Kirk Cousins.
Break them down for us, since again you are a fan and you watch them so closely. Talk about the Redskins.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's maybe everybody was kind of thinking, all right, maybe that's where we have to change, is at the quarterback position first off. And that's why they didn't feel like, and that's why they never gave Kirk Cousins that big contract through the years. It was one of those where it's like, okay, it's a good gap stop, but we still don't have an answer to what our long-term future is. So when Jay Gruden in the offseason decided, you know what, let's go after Alex Smith. Maybe that's where we're going to, Kirk Cousins wants this money once again. We'll let him walk. He ends up in Minnesota, and then they get Alex Smith because Andy Reid wanted to, start Patrick Mahomes, who's been awesome, who could have been a Saint, by the way.
Yes.
Wow.
But yeah, I know it is a while there. So Alex Smith has been, it's been a good upgrade for them at the quarterback position. This team is hot and cold. This team, one week they can dominate a team like the Packers, and then they come out next week and it's flat. So to be honest, I have no idea what team is going to show up on Monday night against the Saints, because I don't think that defense can stop what the Saints can do. But in turn, I want to see if the Redskins can get that running game. It's going to have to be kind of a time possession, get that running game going. Alex Smith is going on those 13, 14, 15 play drives to keep that offense off the field. That's the best chance for the Redskins to win this game.
I think we're going to find out a lot about the run defense this week. I think we found a little bit more about it last week against the Giants, but I think we'll really find out about whether the run defense is legit this week. Your thoughts?
The Redskins, every team has like a little team they just have trouble with, and Sean Payton and Drew have had trouble with the Redskins. It's kind of strange because they haven't been a great team for the most part, but I think the little wild card for the Saints is going to be Ingram.
Yes.
It's almost going to be an advantage that he hasn't been there, and now he's back, and Payton's probably got an exotic game plan in addition to Taysom Hill. So I think that might put him over the edge, but I think it's going to be a high-scoring game.
Be interested to see what happens with the Saints in terms of punt returner. They cut Brandon Tate. They were talking about the possibility of maybe bringing Boston Scott up, Kamara or Ginn. Ginn's been a little bit shaky back there at best. Do you really want to subject Kamara to returning punts if it's not a big deal like what they used to do with Reggie Bush? When you need a big return, put him back there, make the kicker have to kick away from him, whatever. I'm interested to see what happens there. That's kind of been a revolving door since training camp.
Yeah, that's been the one issue. If we're going to talk the one bugaboo for the special teams, it's been that returner, and it's been kind of a revolving door. I mean, Brandon Tate's been there and it's been out. Ted Ginn almost made that gaffe that he had near the goal line in the fourth quarter after the Giants scored that could have swung momentum, and then you never know what happens if, let's say the Giants recover that or the Saints, go 3 and out there. That's and Sean Payton doesn't sound like he's too concerned about it, but it is an issue for that team finding at least somebody to return it. Taysom, and this is the thing, I go with Taysom Hill, I go, okay, kick return, that's one thing.
Right.
Punt return is a whole different game.
Yeah.
That is a different thing. And as great as Taysom Hill is as an athlete, punt returner is something where I don't know if I want to subject Taysom Hill at that, because it does take some skill. I mean, it's a very, it's a specialized skill to do, and it's different from kick return. So I don't know if I would throw Taysom Hill.
And it's a different athlete as well.
Yeah.
You got to be really quick twitch. You got to be able to catch the football, obviously. You got guys coming down at you 100 miles an hour. It'll be interesting to see how they fill that out. Guys, one last comment about the Saints, and really it kind of mirrors LSU as well. I think we find out a lot about this team over the next 5 weeks or so. You got Washington this week at home, and then you got the bye week, and then you're at Baltimore, you're at Minnesota, you got the Rams at home, and then at Cincinnati, and then Philadelphia at home. I think you're going to find out a lot about whether this team is a contender or pretender by the time you get to Philadelphia.
Yeah, that is the money part of the schedule right there. That's the difficult part of that, and I'm really interested to see when they play the Rams. I think that's going to be the who's the best in the NFC, because in the end, whoever probably wins that game, honestly, that could be your number one seed in the playoffs when we go to the NFC. I think that's going to be the best test. I think that's going to be the one where they're going to be up for, and we're going to see probably the best out of both teams in that contest. But yeah, it's where do you pick up some wins here? Where can you steal one on the road? Can you win one at Baltimore? Can you win one at Cincy? Can you get Philly out here, catch Philly at the right time here? Even though they'll be wearing the away jerseys, leaves no bet there. But that is the heart of the schedule where we're going to learn a lot. Like you said, we're going to learn a lot about the Saints team.
It's still such a long season as far as, where they get into the playoffs and everything. But what these few weeks are going to decide is if they have a chance for the 1 seed, which can make all the difference, or the 2 seed can be just as good sometimes. But, there's still a lot of time to make up for things if they don't do well in this stretch.
Well, and look, AFC North, very physical division. Saints have had problems with the AFC North in the past. We'll find out where the rubber hits the road in terms of the physicality of this team as well. You mentioned uniforms. By the way, LSU looking pretty sharp with those throwback 58 uniforms with the helmet. Saints looking pretty sharp in those rusher all white.
I think they need to bust those out more. I love that color. It looked great watching that up front, up close in New York or in New Jersey on Sunday. I'm like, they need to play that. They need to play in those jerseys more. I love them.
They need to go to the gold that they wore in the original.
The original.
Like Archie's uniform. Those gold pants, the gold number. Those I hate the white on white and the black on white.
No, the color rush is good, but I do love throwback vintage. I love those.
Yeah, me too as well. We'll take a quick break. We come back after hearing from our underwriters. We're going to talk about LSU. We'll squeeze some Tulane in there as well, and your phone calls. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Ricardo LeCompte of Channel 4 Sports, and Glenn Guilbeau of Gannett News Now USA Today Network.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner and Sunday brunch, serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Ricardo LeCompte of Channel 4 and also Glenn Guilbeau of USA Today Network. We switched to the LSU Tigers. Tigers 5-0, 5th in the AP, 6th in the coaches poll. Who would have thought it? I wouldn't have thought 5-0. It's been an incredible season for the Tigers thus far. 45-16 winners over Ole Miss in Tiger Stadium. Glenn, I'll take you first. Getting healthy on the offensive line for this week, and it's going to be a tough game against Florida. Charles and Cushenberry look like they're coming back, and then either Hines or Campbell at that guard position. Your thoughts?
That's what's amazing. They have decisions to make now as to who will play based on who's better as opposed to who's walking, because they had so many injuries, and the injuries and the suspension to Ed Ingram before the season, it's made them have a baptism of fire, and they have more depth now. So they got like 6 or 7 guys who can play, and they've been doing well. Nick Brossette is one of the 4th leading rusher in the SEC. They haven't given up a whole lot of sacks because Burrow's got some escapability, but the line had some issues early in the season with pass protection, but they moved some things around. And James Craig is their new offensive line coach, and he's done a masterful job because he's gotten people ready to play that haven't played, like Jason Hines, a true freshman. Donovan Campbell had never played. He started last week. Deculus, right. Austin Deculus had started 1 game, played only didn't start a game last year, played only 2 games. They got them ready, and I think really Orgeron has done a great job with his staff because he's gotten guys who are coaches first and then will worry about recruiting after that. Whereas in the past, they had too many guys that just recruited, okay? They got Bill Bush in the secondary, has been a big help. And of course, Greg McMahon, the former Saints coach, doing a great job, special teams, and then James Craig on the offensive line.
Yeah. Ricardo, your thoughts so far on the season, and if you would concentrate on the offensive line, because that was the biggest question mark, I thought, coming into the season. Can the offensive line protect whoever the quarterback's going to be? Can they open up holes for, again, a running game with running backs that really hadn't had a lot of success until this year?
There's so many unknowns just coming into the season with the offensive line, if that was going to be, who was going to be the running back outside, outside Darius Geis. And they've been playing well, through these first 5 games. I think the Auburn game was one of those games that it was like, all right, you go in a hostile environment, you fight tooth and nail. It's back and forth, and then they have the lead. Then Auburn goes out, and then you're coming back in the 4th. That said a lot about what that team. But I wouldn't even say the Miami game was a big win. It was really the Auburn game that kind of gets them rolling where they're at right now. Now we're going to get into the stretch. Now we're getting into the stretch where they're at Florida, and then you've got Georgia, Mississippi State, Alabama.
Yes.
This is SEC football. This is what you're going to run into. But I think outside of previous years, I think LSU is probably more equipped to handle that run than probably in years past.
Yeah, just like the Saints. We'll find out if LSU is a contender or a pretender going forward with this 4-game stretch.
Right, but LSU doesn't have a glaring weakness like the Saints do at cornerback. LSU has improved just about everywhere they've been. They really don't have something you can say, oh, I'm worried about this, because the receivers are getting better, and they're using a lot of receivers. The backs, Coach O said on Monday, the backs are running better than he thought they would. The line has gotten some depth, and they're not going to be a great line, but they're holding their own. The defensive line has not rushed the passer very good. If you wanted to point one thing out, it's that. The linebackers have, though, and even without Caleb Owen-Chasson, but they'd be much better if they had him. The secondary has played very well. And you haven't been able to say this in years. LSU goes into this game against Florida, and they have the better quarterback. We never said that.
Come on.
So and I
think
that's
saying much when Florida doesn't even have a quarterback half the time. That's saying
right.
That's saying a lot.
Florida hasn't. They've had problems on offense for years now. McElwain really kind of ruined their offense, and Muschamp wasn't much better. And Franks might be a good quarterback, but he's not there yet. And Dan Mullen's a great coach, and he's kind of had LSU's number, but he doesn't have his people in yet. And if it's a close game, I think Burrow will win the game like he did at Auburn.
Your thoughts on Burrow?
Yeah, I think this is the quarterback that LSU's been kind of, they needed, if you win the season, you needed some stability there. And I think Burrow so far has been giving that offense that stability that they needed. I didn't expect him to go light the LSU on fire and throw for all these numbers or whatever, but I thought it was a solid option, and he's shown that. And again, I'll point to that Auburn game, that fourth quarter where he's leading that team and making big throws, and that's what's kind of been lacking from this LSU offense is a playmaker at the quarterback position to make those plays in those types of situations. So Burrow doesn't have to throw for 400 and do all this, but he's smart enough not to lose the games for LSU.
Yeah. He is a coach's son. You can see it in his preparation. You can see it how he attacks defenses. And the biggest surprise for me is his ability to run the football.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, no quarterback has ever had the type game he had this past week against Ole Miss. He threw for 292, and he rushed for, what was it?
96.
96, right. So no quarterback's ever thrown for 300 and rushed for 100. You know, the quarterbacks who've rushed for 100, they passed for hardly anything, and the ones who passed for 400 and 500 ran for nothing. So, I mean, this was it tells you something about how bleak LSU's history at quarterback. They've had guys that are called dual threat quarterbacks, but they really weren't threats at both of them. Burrow's a legitimate threat at both of them because he can run. And it kind of just started after the Southeastern game. Ensminger just said, we're going to start running Burrow more. And Coach O's like, well, not that much. You know? Right. Because we don't have anybody behind him at the moment, really. But and his stats aren't there. His throwing stats aren't there. He's not even in the pass efficiency leaders. But when it comes down to it, he's thrown the ball very well. And his stats are going to eventually come around because he had a good one against Ole Miss. But he's a guy that, gives LSU a positive going into a game as opposed to we hope the quarterback doesn't mess up.
Right. As far as the running backs go with Brissett and Edwards-Helaire, they've done well thus far. You're going to get into this really tough meat of the schedule here. You anticipate them having the same success?
I do. Brissett fumbled last week, but he's been a very strong inside runner, and they got a good complement with Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he's pretty thick, but he's much quicker, and he's kind of a finesse back. And they've been able to get the job done. And going into the season, Coach Orgeron thought that Chris Curry, the true freshman, was going to be the main back, but Brissett and Clyde both surprised him.
How about you? Do you have faith that those two guys, when you start going against the Georgias and the Alabamas and Mississippi States of the world, and even again a pretty good Florida defense this weekend, that they'll be able to continue to be successful?
Well, this is the test. This is where we're going to see how well these running backs are going to do it. When you go against a Kirby Smart defense, you go against a Saban coach team in general, you're going to have to win up front. And this is actually, if you're going to go for the running back test, this is more of a test for the offensive line moving forward to see if they can handle elite defensive front. So it's still, we'll see probably next few weeks, but I do have confidence moving forward that LSU at least can handle it, if not win some of these battles.
Before we go to the calls at 866-3200, got to ask about Grant Delpit. They have unleashed him now in that defensive backfield. They've had some great safeties in LSU history. This guy looks like he's going to be right there with the rest of them.
And he's keeping a good safety on the bench. Jacoby Stevens was the number one safety in America, true freshman last year, just like Delpit. But yeah, Delpit's being compared to Jamal Adams, not by the media or the fans, but by guys at LSU that played with Jamal Adams, like John Battle and like Greedy Williams, who was a redshirt that year but practiced with him. So they know. They call him Baby Mal for Jamal. Jamal's the only one who doesn't agree with that. but John Battle actually said that Delpit is better as a sophomore than Adams was as a sophomore.
That is scary.
Wow. Yeah. So he's playing very well. And he's all over the field. His stat line is everywhere. So there's a lot of talent back in that secondary with Greedy Williams too.
Your thoughts on Delpit?
Delpit's been all over the field.
Impressive.
Just making plays left and right. And it's if you're going, all right, Greedy Williams was the name that everybody was saying going into the season in that secondary. But Delpit is just all around the ball, and that when you were just dropping some of that, the comparisons to Jamal Adams. You can see flashes and glimpses of that. It's scary how good Delpit has been early in the season.
Give a lot of credit to Ed Orgeron, his staff.
Bill Bush, secondary coach.
They've had this team ready to play every single week.
Yeah.
Even with all the distractions in the offseason, everything that went down leading up to the season, the suspensions at Ingram, everything else you've seen, losing Chasson, your best pass rusher, disruptive player on the defensive side of the ball, they have been ready to play every week. And I tell you, that says something for the coaching staff. No doubt.
And the spots where they haven't played well, they had a big lead against Miami, and they kind of slowed up a little bit. They had a big lead against
by design,
Louisiana
maybe?
Tech. No, not by design. I think just human nature or whatever.
Right.
But if that's what your criticism is, that's pretty good, because both of those games were already won. And then Southeastern, they probably could have played better, but the game was won. You never thought they were going to lose. So, but when it was game time to win the game, they put it out of reach against Miami, put it out of reach against Ole Miss, came back and won against Auburn.
Let's head to the phone lines, 866-3200. Greg is in Houma. Greg, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Hey, guys, got a question for you. So Mark Ingram comes back, and he plays up to his potential like he did last year with Kamara and Ingram, and he does really well, but it's his contract year. So what do the Saints do with Ingram if he plays lights out at the end of the year? And I'll hang up and listen.
Ricardo, I think he's already proven it. I think he proves that, again, he deserves a contract for the Saints just based off what's happened thus far.
Yeah, but I don't know if the Saints are going to give it to him. That's the thing, and I think we've got indications after that 4-game suspension, that kept him out, and now he's only going to play these 12 games, and kind of just the way that Kamara's developed. I think at the beginning of the season, with everything that was going on in the offseason, I think the Saints' plan was to already know after the season that they were going to part ways with Mark Ingram. I don't know if that changes, maybe a change of heart, but I think the Saints have already tried to figure out their plan post Mark Ingram. But yeah, I think in these 12 games that Ingram has when he comes back, this is a contract year, and he's got to get to 1,000 yards because that's when the incentives in his contract boost in. So you have 12 games and you got money on the line.
Right.
He is going to play lights out for the Saints.
Your thoughts on Ingram?
That could end up working in the Saints' favor because he's missing 4 games, so he might not hit those bonuses, and he might not have the great statistical year to get him a big contract in free agency. So he might want to stay with the Saints for less of a contract.
Right.
But even if they do have a plan in place, it could all change how Ingram does, particularly if him coming back really puts him into that number 1, number 2 seed playoff.
I think the physicality of Ingram, the type of back he is now, the more complete back he is now, being able to protect Breeze, be able to catch the ball at the backfield, what he brings to the table in terms of leadership and how he energizes his team, I think it'd be tough to let him go. He would have to have a bad season.
And I think these first 4 games showed you the value of Ingram too, because they outside of Kamara they had nothing with Mike Gillislee, Jonathan Williams. Right. I mean, Dwayne Washington. It's been a rotating door back there. Ingram showed his worth because nobody else could step up in his spot in his first.
And you know what you have in Ingram, whereas if they go by the way they've tried to get running backs in the past, it's too iffy.
No doubt. Tom is in Metairie. Tom, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Tom.
Hey, guys, I want to make a couple of comments about Taysom Hill, then have a question for you. So I don't know of one player that's played so many different positions in an NFL team. And if he were to work out, you have to figure other teams would probably try and look for a Taysom Hill next year type, if they can find it. And he's good on blocking punts. Why not put him on defense on 3rd and long? Let him go after the quarterback. What do you guys think about that? I'll hang up.
Guys?
I think that was a joke going around in the press box on Sunday. It was like, well, Taysom Hill can do it all. Let's throw him in the defensive backfield because,
cornerback.
Cornerback because, none of these corners can stop guys. Taysom Hill has been a guy that Sean Payton has wanted as a project. It's such an intriguing talent that he brings because he just brings so much. And it does show what Sean Payton can do with a talent like that, how to utilize them in the offense there. I'm sure teams are looking for something because this is a copycat league. So if you can find a dual threat like Taysom Hill, somewhere down the line that you can incorporate in your offense, why not do it?
Baltimore's doing it with Lamar Jackson right now.
Yeah. You see him and Joe Flacco splitting snaps there. And that, I think that does speak to Sean Payton. Just you have that talent, not letting him just sit as a backup quarterback. You utilize him in special teams. You utilize him at offense. I don't know about defensive back, but the way the corners have been playing, who knows? Maybe he could do that and become a legend here in New Orleans.
Got a comment on that, Glenn?
I keep him on offense.
There you go. Wallace is in New Orleans. Wallace, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Wallace.
Hey, guys, how y'all doing today?
Wallace.
I got a question about Keenan Love. You think he in any kind of good shape to come back this year, or what? Anybody know anything about him?
Yeah.
Or who else out there? What kind of cornerback we got out there?
Yeah, I
we
think
need
it's
one
slim
for the
pickings
rest of
right
the
now,
season.
Wallace. When you get to this point in the season, all the corners are either on a team or again, they're not playing anymore. And I don't think Keenan Lewis is in a position to come back all these years after being out.
He's been out for 2 years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And he had a severe injury as well. And he's not too happy with the Saints the way it was treated. So a little bit of bad blood there. Let's grab Toby because I want to get to Tulane. Toby, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Toby.
Hey, how come Ricky Jackson's number is not retired yet? And I'll hang up and thank you.
I'm with you, Toby. Every individual that's in the Hall of Fame that came from this team, no one should be wearing their number. That is Willie Rofe, Ricky Jackson, and of course Morton Anderson. Those numbers should not be worn along with Archie Manning because of what he meant to this franchise. I'm with you 100% on that one.
Yeah, that's strange.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
Tulane, best win of the season, maybe the best win of the Willie Fritz era. They dominated Memphis.
They, going into that game on last Friday night, they called it a must-win, and it absolutely was a must-win because you did not want to fall to 1-4, and then as you were starting your American Athletic Conference slate, you start going, okay, where can we pick up a win? Where can we pick up a win here? Memphis offensively was probably one of the best. I mean, we know how good that Memphis offense, even before Justin Fuente left to go to Virginia Tech. I mean, you equate Memphis at their offense. Tulane's defense held them to 277 yards. They had 7 sacks.
Amazing.
They held the leading rusher in the NCAA to 51 yards. I mean, it was an incredible defensive performance by Tulane. And offensively, Corey Dauphine, the running back, this guy is a track guy. This guy won a national title in the 200-meter. And when he gets out into the open space, he is lights out. It was their best complete game, as we talk about complete games. Right. And that's what they needed against a Memphis team. Moving forward, you hope the defense can continue to play like they did. And you want to see Jonathan Banks continue to make that progression at quarterback. It's a dual threat, but he's a dual threat that still has issues of trying to make something out of nothing. He likes to improvise. He does that, and it's you get some good and you get some bad with it.
Yes.
If he can make the right decisions moving forward and just keep that offense going forward, Tulane's going to have a chance to finally. I know we were talking about this being a potential bowl season. He's got to play well in order for them to accomplish that.
What surprised me was the physicality of Tulane on both sides of the ball against Memphis. Total domination.
Yeah, it was incredible how they dominated. Yes. Now, this is actually going to be a better test this week against Cincinnati. Yes. They have a top 10 defense in the NCAA. This is a really good defense, and they are just what Cincinnati does. They recruit big up front. So D-line and offensive line are huge up there. You want to see the physicality. That's going to be a battle in the trenches on Saturday up there in Cincy.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And that could be Joe Burrow could be playing.
And Joe Burrow, it could be.
That's where Ed thought he was going.
That's where everybody thought he was going. Yeah. No doubt. Luke Fickle, the coach there, tight with his family, no doubt about it. Hopefully Tulane can do it. Tough test, though. Undefeated Cincinnati this weekend.
Yeah, and Cincinnati's been, like I said, been doing it defensively. Offensively, they've been pretty well. They have a redshirt quarterback that's been well. And against UConn, they had over 650 yards of total offense the last game out. So this will be another tough test. If they get this win, if they're able to win in Cincinnati, I think we can't start talking seriously that Tulane can make a bowl game. But we'll see.
They ought to be 4-2 right now.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You think you can win at UAB?
Right.
I think they could have got the Wake Forest game as well.
Me too. And look, they control their own destiny now because they're in conference play the rest of the way. Yes. No doubt. Ricardo LeCompte with Channel 4 Sports. Glenn Guilbeau of USA Today Network. Thanks for being on our program tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. Also statewide, Pelican Sports Television. That's 9 o'clock every Friday night. Catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2 on the iHeartRadio app. That is Monday through Friday from noon to 2. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. All the previous episodes of this program Inside New Orleans Sports can also be seen at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to our underwriters. Please continue supporting our underwriters. Also to the WLAE production staff, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Naila Jones, Trey Lopez, his last night here. Trey, thanks for all you've done for us. And, of course, Alex Chacon and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.